was here that angry crowds soon began throwing rocks, breaking into stores, and setting fires.
We're in a lot of trouble, dude. A lot of trouble. These people are angry, and they have every right to be.
By nightfall, dozens of buildings were burning. Firemen could not get to most of them for fear they would be attacked. When one crew tried, a fireman was shot and wounded. There was so much smoke over the city that planes landing at LA's airport had to shift directions. At the city's police headquarters, a crowd of several hundred people, furious at the verdicts, tried to rush the building. They taunted patrolmen who stood shoulder to shoulder in riot gear. Unable to provoke the officers, the mob then set off through the city's downtown section, trying to torch other government buildings and breaking glass. An exhausted-looking mayor, Tom Bradley, went on TV and declared a curfew. Other city leaders compared the looting and the fires to the Watts riots of 1965.
California's Governor Pete Wilson went on television earlier this morning and said that he would make the National Guard available to help restore order if needed. He said they could be in Los Angeles and on the streets by as early as later this morning. Charles?
Thank you, Bill. Bill, I get to it in Los Angeles. Ready?
Community leaders in Los Angeles tried to keep a lid on the anger last night, but peacekeeping proved risky. Cindy Kennard joins us from Los Angeles with that story. Cindy?
Well, good morning, Meredith. We are at the County Criminal Courts building in downtown Los Angeles, where an anxious, roving crowd of about 300 smashed windows here overnight after the verdict was read. Now, at the same time, across the city, community leaders gathered in a church in an event that was designed to head off this type of violence and disturbance, and it had been an event that had been planned for weeks.
Thousands flocked to the oldest black church in Los Angeles, seeking refuge from the pain and anger and hoping community leaders could explain a jury verdict that seemed beyond belief.
That we've been the victims of police brutality for in this town for too long.
We know they're guilty.
Well, not only is this an insult to the black race, it is an insult to the human race.
Los Angeles, thank you.
A night of rage in Los Angeles after 4 police officers accused of beating a black motorist are acquitted of criminal charges. Good morning, America. I'm Joan London.
And I'm Charles Gibson. This morning in Washington, D.C., it is Thursday, April 30th, and we devote most of the broadcast this morning to the Rodney King case. Joan?
California's governor has declared a state of emergency for Los Angeles to curb the violence that broke out after a nearly all-white jury acquitted 4 police officers charged in the videotaped beating of Rodney King.
Let's get right to Mike Schneider, who's standing by with the news of the day. Mike?
Thank you, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. We have been watching parts of Los Angeles burn overnight, stores being looted in Los Angeles, motorists actually being pulled from their cars and in some cases beaten. All a reaction to the verdicts in the Rodney King case. There are parts of Los Angeles right now, the troubled parts, the shaded area of your screen there, that are now under a dusk to dawn curfew as police, aided by the National Guard, which has been called out now, try to restore order to a very troubled section of America's second largest city. The trouble started shortly after a jury found 4 Los Angeles policemen not guilty of criminal charges in the beating of Rodney King.
A state of emergency was declared by authorities as more than 150 fires burned in Los Angeles, and the looting and rioting continued through the night. In several cases, motorists were dragged from their cars and beaten. Some witnesses say the rioters cheered and raised their arms in victory as a truck driver was attacked and sent to the hospital in critical condition. More than 100 other people were also injured in the violence. Several died, as anger over the King verdict swept through the black community. Early on in the evening, community leaders fervently called for restraint, saying violence would not change the verdict. But by midnight, the governor was calling out the National Guard.
This is a matter that needs to be settled in the courts and not in the streets.
We slowly will get it under control, but I think there's a lot of work to be done before it is under control.
12 hours left in this night on the West Coast, so the violence is not over yet, Mike.
Tom, at this point, what are they doing about the fires? Are firefighters getting anywhere near these blazes, or are they in some cases just content to sit back and let themselves burn?
They're having a little more luck now because the police have largely been involved in trying to protect the firefighters while they move in and try to do this work. One firefighter was shot in the face earlier tonight. He was taken to a hospital for treatment. They're doing a little bit better at that. More than that, the police seem to be doing a better job of trying to keep some of the blazes from being set now. So at least they're dealing with a number of blazes that do not seem to be growing as rapidly as they were at one point in the night.
One also, from looking at the video, could get a sense sometime that everybody in these neighborhoods is rioting, and we know that's not the case. Are we getting feedback from some of the other residents, how they're coping with this and what their reaction is to the violence around them?
There's not a lot of feedback at this point, Mike, because a lot of people are not coming outside, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of people don't want to be outside. It's later than that now. It's 4 o'clock here at this hour. And a lot of people are simply staying away from the violence, trying to avoid it. There's not a lot of reaction from the street simply because of that. The people who are on the street are either trying to stop the violence or are part of it in great part.
Now, the jury in this case, and this is one of the key factors for the outrage here, the jury in this case, which cleared the police officers, had no blacks on it. There was one Asian, there was one Hispanic, but the rest of the people were just white people. There were no black people there. One juror did talk later with ABC's Ted Koppel, the condition here that the person would not be identified in any way. That juror said that King could have stopped the beating at any time by simply raising his hands. The juror said the jury believed the policemen were justified in fearing that King was an out-of-control person and potentially violent. ABC's Tom Schell now has more on the verdict.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant not guilty of the crime.
The jury's decision was the same on 10 of the 11 charges against the 4 police officers. In each case, it was not guilty. As court adjourned, attorneys, defendants, and family members exchanged hugs of celebration. Outside the courtroom, Deputy District Attorney Terry White commented.
Well, my reaction is shock first and then disappointment. Obviously, we feel the evidence warranted a conviction on the defendants, and the jury disagreed with us, and we must abide by their decision.
Attorney Stephen Lerman, who represents Rodney King, was outraged at the verdict.
Any right-thinking, normal person that sees that videotape and has experienced the shock and viciousness of this event can't sit with this verdict as being the final.
Not guilty of the crime of assault by force likely to produce great bodily injury and with a deadly weapon.
In Los Angeles, the deadly aftermath of the Rodney King verdict, violence, arson, and anguished cries.
It's a disgrace. It don't make no sense. It's not going to do no better. It's going to make it worse.
Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, April 30th. I'm Paula Zahn.
And I'm Harry Smith. Good morning and welcome to CBS This Morning. We're going to bring you the latest developments from Los Angeles. Now for this morning's news, tensions exploded overnight on the streets of Los Angeles following the acquittal of 4 police officers charged in the beating of Rodney King. The city is under a state of emergency this morning after a night of fires, looting, and violence. At least 5 people are dead, more than 100.
Back now, 8 o'clock on a Thursday morning, the last morning of April of '92, is a morning of violence in the streets of Los Angeles following the acquittal of 4 white police officers in the beating of a black motorist. We're back in Studio 3B for a second hour of today. Along with Katie Couric, I'm Bryant Gumbel. We'll go to Faith Daniels for the news desk. Faith?
Thank you, Bryant. Well, certainly, as you've been hearing, the violence is continuing on the streets of Los Angeles this morning. It all follows the acquittal Wednesday of 4 policemen accused of beating motorist Rodney King. At least 8 people are dead and scores of buildings are on fire. George Lewis has been following the story right through the night, and he is with us again from Los Angeles. George?
Good morning, Faith. The skies of Los Angeles are black with smoke from at least 150 fires deliberately set. Mobs went on a rampage, mostly in the black neighborhoods of South Central Los Angeles, and a state of emergency remains in effect.